Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are, and welcome to this week's Weekly Energy Boost. My name is Elisheva, and I am here this Monday morning with David, and we are excited to share with you the Kabbalah of death, the most joyful way to die. I don't know who comes up with these topics, these titles, but we'll go with it. The energy of this week is highlighting that process, not God forbid, for people to die, but really to understand and gain clarity about our soul's purpose. And last month we had an episode on where we asked listeners for questions and answers. And one of the questions that came up numerous times from listeners was about contacting loved ones who they've lost. And that also generated a new stream of questions. So it really ties in beautifully to this week's understanding of the body's process in the spiritual journey and how we can learn and grow from understanding that process to be more focused on fulfilling our potential and to do our best while we're alive. Weekly Energy Boost is a 7-day spiritual weather forecast where David and I, and sometimes our guests, provide our listeners with the most practical and powerful tools to navigate the coming 7 days. We do that through gleaning the wisdom of Kabbalah. And inevitably, every episode provides you with the most, the best of the principles and tools that you can use to navigate any day of the week, any week of the year. And so as we hone in this week on that understanding about what purpose death serves and how we can use it as a catalyst for our growth, we really want to turn our focus on the positives, the gains, and not the losses. So David, when people come to you with questions about the soul's journey and what happens afterwards, how do you start that conversation?
Well, first I would say that I try to preemptively work on people's perception of death. And I think the perception overarchingly is that it's negative. And one thing we have to understand is that there's always continuity in this world, because if the creator controls everything in this world, that means there's always continuity. Death is the illusion and the perception that we have. And so that limitation is on us. It's not on the creator. And if the real world, the real reality is continuous and is filled with the light of the creator, and in my world, there's limitation, there's walls, there's curtains I don't see. Like, for example, if you're going through something confusing right now, if you don't have the answer to something, if you're in pain, all that means is that the answer and the solution is there. It's always been there because the light already created everything. There's nothing new being created. I can't access it because of some limitation inside of me. And when you realize that in one moment, in 1 second, all your problems can go away because the solution has already been presented. I just haven't tapped into it. Then you look at the world differently. And so there's always continuity. There's always life, even when there's death. So this is something that I think is important for all of us to understand and not to be afraid of death. Now let's look at something else that's positive about death. It's very important to die every day. What does that mean? Only when you let go of something and it's painful. It could be letting go of an opinion, letting go of your ego in a fight. It can be letting go of a behavior, a habit, an addiction. It can be something that you know you probably should like. It could be letting go of energy at the gym, right? I mean, when do you finish your workout? When you're fully burned out or kind of somewhere in the middle? You obviously want to reach a place of burnout. For the muscles and the body to reach its highest state, you need to take it first to its lowest state, which feels like death. So death is actually how you create life. When you take something old, when you let go of something for a positive reason, in this case, the gym would be working out. It's obviously a positive reason. You actually stimulate at the same time the rebirth of that. And then you have something new. You have what's called the next level. And so people who hold on, who don't let go on a daily basis, who hold on to their opinions and hold on to their feelings and hold on to their emotions, and they don't even share what's going on inside of them. They're not letting go. This stagnation is a very swampy water. It collects bacteria, and that's what a cancer cell is. It's a cell that's holding on. Most cells die and are reborn and rejuvenate. But a cancer cell says, no, I'm not going to go through that process. I'm going to hold on. So that's the first thing.
I think that you opened up a can of worms because there are a lot of people, whether they were told, literally or not, that they perceive death as a punishment. Not only death itself, but death of a loved one is a form of punishment. So if you are experiencing, if a person, sometimes it happens, I'm sure you've heard this before from people, that people all around them are dying and they feel that they've done something wrong, right? That losing people feels like the universe is telling them something. They've done something wrong, or chaos even. We shouldn't even make that exclusively about death. When challenges come up, people feel like the universe is punishing them. So part of that shift is understanding that death and any form of challenge, honestly, is a part of a long haul procedure. Kabbalah teaches that the soul is eternal and the body is temporary. And our tendency is to believe and to give much more credence in the body, which is that temporary, fleeting vehicle, and less credence, less emphasis, less importance on the soul. So this week, we really want to shift what we look at as darkness and realize that even darkness is a part of the light, is a part of the journey and the process. The Kabbalists teach that there are only two reasons why a person would need to leave the physical reality.
And both are positive.
That's one of the reasons I want to bring it up as part of this shifting our perception, is because death is not a punishment for anybody. Either a person dies because they completed their to-do list in this world, that they progressed as far as they can possibly progress in their tikkun, in their evolution journey in this lifetime. Or the second reason is they veered so far off of that path of progress and purpose and transformation that the best way for them to get back to that path is to start again. So either way, the universe is looking at the individual and saying, how can I keep you on target? And sometimes keeping a person on target means they finish this life and they get to move on to their next one where they're going to continue that journey. And sometimes it's protection in the big picture, even though the process may be painful and difficult and feel very unfortunate. The process itself is super fortunate because it's allowing the person to start again toward the target of fulfilling their purpose and their transformation.
One of our most popular podcasts was about embracing pain. People love this idea because pain comes so often to us, and we often don't have tools to deal with it. And so pain then begets more pain, and we have anxiety and frustrations. But death, which is the highest level, it's at the end of pain. Embracing death is even more powerful. And when you're going through some form of embarrassment, rejection, failure, poverty, a loss of something, a loss of money, a loss of a relationship, these are all forms of death. And what's happening is something is dying so that something new can be reborn. However, because of our own personal free will, when we're going through this loss, we encounter sadness and feelings of hurt and pain and doubt, and we dwell in those negative feelings. And what that does is it delays the birth of the new thing. So if you're going through some form of death right now, the sooner we can embrace the death, even get to a level of appreciation because we see the whole picture. We're not just getting lost in the process. You quickly can receive the new birth. And we learn this actually about people physically leaving this world. Many times we've had to speak at funerals and memorials. And the consciousness that I always share from the Zohar is this person has left this world, and essentially what they've done is they left behind their physical body. with all of its limitations. The physical body has limitations. The soul does not. So the person you love who has now died is a soul that is unlimited and is connected to the light force. If you want to maintain a relationship with this person, even though they're in another world spiritually, you want to maintain a relationship, you want to receive support, you want to receive guardianship as an angel, you want to be able to communicate with them, whether it's in dreams or in person, you want to just feel that you're close to them, you have to have affinity of form with them. So you have to embrace the death, embrace the pain. After, of course, the mourning period is over, which is a 7-day period initially and then a 30-day period. But especially after 30 days, there must be acceptance and happiness. And those qualities of acceptance and happiness are on such a high vibration that it attracts the soul that has left this world to come to you in many ways, including protecting you. So we see clearly here that the faster you embrace something, the faster you love something or attempt to love it, even if you're in pain, you attempt to love it, you speed up its birth or its rebirth in a new way, in a new level.
It's also interesting, I think, to focus on the aspect of our perception of death when let's start that again. When you look at someone who's lived a long life, a full life, accomplished beautiful things, leaving behind them a legacy and generations to follow, there's a certain peace of mind, or we who survive are at peace with that process because we look at the individual and we say they have a great life. It's a lot harder to reconcile everything we've shared so far when we look at a person's journey and we perceive it's been cut short.
Right.
Or they're too young. Or I was recently very affected by someone who had passed away. I think he was 33, left behind 4 kids, a family. I mean, just terrible, terrible tragedy from the body's perspective. And it was a great opportunity for me to revisit what I thought I believed and what I thought my consciousness was around death and the journey of the soul. That I didn't know this person. I don't know their family. It was just I got in a way caught up in their story, and there even my kids, when they heard me talking about it, I couldn't help but cry, and it really gave me pause. Like I really had the opportunity to look and say, if this can be so painful for me, do I really believe what I'm teaching? How much of my being has complete and total certainty, and if it's only part of my being, it's not complete and total certainty, that this was absolutely the best thing for everybody involved. And that's I use this example to shed light on. In that case, how can you look at those kids that their father isn't going, their biological father, their mom may remarried and they live beautiful lives ahead of them. But it is painful to think that these children have to go through the loss of their father at such a young age, that this woman is going to have to navigate the coming years on her own and things like that. So it was a really powerful opportunity for me to check myself and realize that I need to go to the next level of my relationship with the Creator, my certainty. And I share this example because I think for all of us, whether we hear about a shooting on television, again, not so long ago, what happened in Nashville, there's no shortage of opportunities to have wake-up calls. And that's one of the things that the Kabbalists teach about death. Death is a wake-up call. Death is to remind us we aren't here for an infinite period of time. We are here for a finite period of time. We are given a lease. We have a lease on our bodies. We have to return them back to the dealership at some point. And how much urgency do we feel about our process, right? Like after hearing a story like that or seeing, a shooting on television, people say, go home and hug your loved ones. And we may do that for a day, 2 days, end every phone call with, I love you, right? Making sure that we don't take our loved ones for granted. And that sort of wanes after a while. And then there's another tragedy that reawakens our sense of urgency, our love for life, our love for the people in the world. And the Kabbalists teach that death is a constant in our lives so that we never lose that sense of urgency, so that we never become complacent, so that we never take things for granted. And not in a fearful way. There are people who are afraid of death, who are afraid of losing their loved ones, who don't let their kids out of their sight for fear that something is going to happen to them. The Kabbalists teach that balance between, I can't take anything for granted, I need to have a healthy sense of urgency, I need to know that everything counts, and at the same time, a person's, maybe the most powerful statement I could make about death is actually, death is not why a person dies, it's how a person dies. So
say that again.
The people who were shot in Nashville a couple weeks ago, they didn't die because they were at that school at that time that the shooter were, they were in the line of fire. The people who die in a car accident or in an illness in a hospital or at 105 years old of old age, that person doesn't die of old age. Old age is how they die, not why they died. If they died, again, go back to those first 2 points, it's either because they finished what they came here to do, or they're so distanced from what they came to do that they need a reboot. They need to go back to the beginning of the game and start playing again. And so when we look at the suffering that takes place, or the tragedy, or the abruptness of how some people die, we need to know that the illness or the accident or the shooting is not why they died. Why they died is a spiritual force. How they died is what appears in the physical.
I love that.
I hate that, actually.
Why do you hate that?
No, it's painful, right? It's one of, I think that death, if we would poll people who began a spiritual journey in the last 5 or 10 years, I would say at least half of them started it because of loss. Because they needed, we as human beings, we need to reconcile conflict, right? We knew when there is a dichotomy, when there is a paradox, we seek to resolve it. And that seeking nature that each one of us has, when we experience something very painful, often compels us to open up our minds and seek answers that we don't have with our 5 senses and the medical books and everything we know until now.
I'm thinking practically what our listeners can take away from this to apply in their lives. And I'll say that the wisdom of Kabbalah emphasizes so greatly this relationship we have with the Creator. And this relationship gets deeper and deeper, hopefully, to the point that we're talking with the Creator more than we're talking with people. I think that's so important. Are you talking with the Creator more than you're talking with people in this physical world? Because if you are, what happens is it's this great analogy. When a plane is going through turbulence and there's a storm, how does the pilot navigate through the storm? Well, almost always he elevates to a higher altitude above the clouds, above the storm. And I think a lot of times when we go through our storm, we try to fix the storm. We try to become the best version of ourselves in the storm. We might even land the plane and try again another time, which is also a problem. All we have to do is elevate our consciousness, because as soon as you get above the clouds, the storms are still going on, but you're operating in a different level, a different world, a different frequency. And so there could be death, there could be life, there are going to be ups and downs, but this will not be your experience because you have elevated your consciousness above the storm. Above the storm. And the sages say that the only way to do that is to learn how to receive from the Creator. We give to people and we receive from the Creator. And what does that mean, to receive from the Creator? It means we don't have the agenda of taking from people. We allow the Creator to summon people into our lives to share with us, yes, and to bring results through other people. But in our mind, and it's very nuanced, but in our mind, we are relying on the Creator. And that means that before we go to bed every night, it's important to actually forgive everybody. Because when you're not forgiving, you're holding on. And you're experiencing a form of death when you hold on to something. So we want to forgive everyone. And it's actually important to visualize losing everything. A lot of times people are afraid to do this because they think that by meditating on that, they're attracting that reality, but it's the opposite. You're protecting from that reality. When you meditate to lose everything and you feel what that feels like, you reset the body, you reset the clock. And so everything in your life becomes rejuvenated with energy. It's a rebirth. Meditating on losing everything, thinking about it, visualizing it, feeling it, is actually how you learn to appreciate everything and bring light back into it. So it's a mini death that we should do every night as well. Because in order to rejuvenate these parts of our lives, unfortunately, the universe takes things away so that we appreciate them and we rejuvenate them once more. Because every time you appreciate something, you bring life to it. Every time you appreciate something, you bring life to it. And every time you're cynical or judgmental about something, you bring death to it. And so because the Creator wants us to be filled with light, filled with joy, it has to manipulate our vessel by pulling things away so that we awaken our own appreciation. And then life comes back in and we feel good. And this is the ups and downs most people live by. But you can be proactive about it. Rise above the storm. Every night, visualize as if you're living a brand new life from death. Visualize not having everything. What does that feel like? And then go back into your reality and to feel appreciation for everything that you have.
As a final note, I don't want to repeat what we said a few weeks ago. In the Q&A episode, we talked about how to connect with loved ones who have passed. We probably gave it 10 to 15 minutes. It was a really good question and a really great answer. So if that's something that you're looking to handle in your own life, I recommend that you go back a couple episodes and listen to that. I wanted to end with David's permission, of course. Our teacher, Karen Berg, wrote a book a number of years ago called To Be Continued, which is a beautiful exploration of what Kabbalah teaches about the soul's journey and reincarnation and how we can learn from different aspects of our own lives about previous lifetimes. It's a beautiful book. We'll put the link on our website for our listeners, so if you want to purchase it, it will be there. I want to read to you a very brief section, a subchapter in the beginning of the book called The Soul's Journey. People die and their bodies decay. But as the first law of thermodynamics tells us, energy can only be transformed. It cannot be created or destroyed. Things don't just disappear in our physical world. Water evaporates but returns to the earth as rain. Mountains become rocks, which become sand. Even death itself cannot result in a loss of energy, so death isn't really the ultimate end of life. What's more, the root source of our being, our soul, isn't even part of our physical body. Think of a cup and water. They exist together, but the water is not a part of the cup. If you pour the water out of the cup, the quality and structure of the water doesn't change. The body is also a container, distinct from the soul that it houses. So when a person dies, that spark of sacred energy that is the soul does not die with that person. It returns to its source, to the Creator. And then after going through a process of spiritual cleansing, the soul is given the opportunity to find a new container in which to pass to another lifetime. Every soul's journey after death is unique, but almost all souls go through a process of cleansing in a place the Kabbalists call Gehenom. This hell, as the Zohar describes it, is not what we commonly take hell to be. It has no fire and brimstone, no devils, no pitchforks, no tormented souls. It's not even a fixed location. It's more like a transient laundromat, a place where souls get washed clean, except that is for those souls that depart the body on the Sabbath. Because of the special energy of mercy available on the Sabbath, those souls do not go through the same process. Why does the soul reincarnate again and again? Because it has profound lessons to learn. In one incarnation, a soul may need to learn about being rich. In the next, it may need to learn about being poor. It may need to learn about strength or weakness, anger or compassion, beauty or unsightliness. With each incarnation, the soul returns to the physical world to correct a different aspect of itself. In doing so, the In so doing, the soul gathers sparks of light back to itself and the puzzle pieces come together. Using the concept, and then it goes into what the book is going to share, but basically Karen says, I'll describe in the next chapter how our lives form a puzzle and how eventually when the soul is complete, it returns to the source of all light, the Creator. So I highly recommend this book for those of you that want to learn more, that want to take it deeper, and recommend that everybody throughout the week continue to look at the different signs and signals and messages and stories that we hear and recognize the universe is sending us those messages for a reason. It's time for us each to go to our next level of understanding death as a part of the process, not a destination and not an end. Weekly Energy Boost is available on all podcast platforms, YouTube, Facebook, and Instagram. We also have a website, weeklyenergyboost.com, where I'll post the link to the book we just read from, as well as other things that we think are interesting and important for our listeners to know about. You can also click the donate button at weeklyenergyboost.com to support our podcast and continue to like, rate, review, and share. Sharing this, I'm sure, especially on the topic we chose for today, will bring comfort and peace to a lot of people who are going through difficult transitions and losses in their lives. Have a fabulous week, and we'll see you next time on the Weekly Energy Boost.